Good evening. My name is Sandra Voltero, and I'm your host, and this is Be Prepared. Be Prepared is back this month of January, discussing again elder abuse. And back with me again tonight are the same guests I had last month, which is D.A. Ryan, who's here today. D.A. Ryan is the Middlesex County District Attorney, and she represents the Commonwealth's largest county with 54 towns and cities and 26 colleges in urban, suburban, and rural areas, comprising of over a quarter of the population of Massachusetts. D.A. Ryan is a career prosecutor with significant courtroom experience, having prosecuted many of Middlesex County's most complex and challenging cases. She has been a leader in domestic violence and prevention and prosecution for over 3 decades and has conducted trainings across the county for prosecutors, law enforcement officers, and service providers on recognizing the signs of domestic violence. She regularly lectures and leads workshops on workplace safety and the dangers of prescription drug abuse, teen dating violence, anti-bullying, and distracted driving, and has been acknowledged for her leadership on opiate crisis and on developing initiatives aimed at keeping children safe and protecting our seniors. She's won a number of awards and peer recognitions for her trial skills and community involvements, including receiving the Middlesex County Bar Association Lifetime Achievement Award and the Boston College Law School's David Nelson Public Service Award. She's currently on the faculty of Lasalle College in Newton, where she teaches courses in constitutional law and the American legal system. Welcome.
Thank you.
And next to her is Marge McDonald, who is the director of the Council on Aging. And Marge has been the director at the Council of Aging since 2001. She served on the committee that worked on creating 211 information phone system and was a certified information and referral specialist. She is a past co-chair and founding member of Metro North Alzheimer's Partnership. Ms. McDonald is past secretary and at-large member of the Massachusetts Council on Aging, which is the MCOA board, and the State Association for Council on Aging in the state. Ms. McDonald also serves on MCOA's Dementia Project Advisory Group and a yet unnamed committee to work on Saving the Shrine, which is a wonderful organization serving health information needs of everyone and counseling programs that is in danger of being defunded by the federal government as of March in 2018. Ms. McDonald was a lead in forming a hoarding group for the town of Burlington and served on Mass DPH Alcohol and Substance Abuse Task Force for seniors. Ms. McDonald works at the local and state levels advocating for seniors and their needs, working toward a world where all seniors are able to live the life they want and deserve to live. Welcome, Marge.
Thank you.
And next to her is Officer Lynn Reynolds. And Lynn has been on the force for 18 years at the Burlington Police Department. She's also the senior liaison for elder abuse here in Burlington, a RAD instructor, and a mountain bike officer. She also served 4 years of active duty in the Air Force, serving in Belgium, Virginia, and Saudi Arabia. She also served 4 years in the Air Force Reserves. Welcome, Lynn.
Thanks.
And next to her is Jimmy Tigges, currently one of the Burlington's criminal detectives.
That's correct.
And in addition to investigating burglaries and other property crimes, Jim is also a sexual assault investigator and has investigated numerous types of financial crimes. Jim is also a member of the Lade Hospital Domestic Violence Initiative Committee and is involved heavily with the community policy efforts of the police department. And he's also our new selectman in town. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Sandra.
And I'm sorry I lost your
That's all right.
paper. But we found it. Okay, let's get started. Jim, you want to give us an update on what we talked about last month?
Well, one of the important subjects we touched upon was the definition of abuse. What is abuse? With regards to abuse in this discussion, it can take the shape of physical abuse, verbal abuse, financial or sexual abuse, but also under that umbrella of abuse, it's sometimes forgotten is the idea of neglect, whether it be neglect from a caretaker or self-neglect, where the person's not taking care of themselves.
Okay, that's good. So let's talk more about today is like what can we do about elder abuse? What are some of the ways we can help people around that subject, such as what is the protective services? Marge, you want to answer that?
So, Protective Services is a department of Elder Affairs that actually contracts out with the local ASAPs, which is Aging Services Access Points. In Burlington, that would be Minuteman Senior Services. So protective services is social workers that will go out and work with families or seniors who have been abused in some way or have neglected themselves in some way. Trying to find the right balance of services and independence. A senior always has a right to say no, but they work very hard to kind of make sure that the seniors are getting what they need and are protected from whoever their abuser might be.
There has been recent changes with the protective service. So what is that
Yes.
all about?
So in the past, you would, during the day from 9 to 5, if you came across an issue, you would call your local ASAP. So we would call Burlington and we would call the local exchange. And then between 5 o'clock at night and 9 a.m. in the morning, you would call the hotline at the state level, which was contracted out. I believe UMass was last doing it. So they would contract out and you would have to call it an 800 number. And if you called the 800 number during the day, you wouldn't get very far. So, and of course, you know, each ASAP and each protective service department is different. So everybody was kind of doing their own thing. And it's expensive, you know, it's all expensive. And some of the ASAPs were having trouble with, you know, who's going to do the intake. Some have information referrals, some have protective service workers, and everybody was doing it a little bit differently. So in the spirit of kind of everyone doing the same thing and having the same procedure and not losing calls, because oftentimes if you called right at 5 o'clock, you would just go nowhere. You wouldn't get your local ASAP and you wouldn't go to the hotline while they were switching over. And that was a big complaint. We lost a lot of intakes from fire and police. They just, you know, they're going out on a call. They try to make a quick phone call. It doesn't go anywhere, and they don't call back. So this was kind of a fix for all of that. So now you call into a central number, and they have several people that are trained and well trained in doing intakes, and they take the call. They won't give any opinions. They just take the information from you, and then they'll send it on. They'll send it back to the local agency who will screen it in or screen it out.
And who are they getting calls from? The abuser or the abused?
They are generally getting calls from the mandated reporters, again, being police, fire, social workers, C.O.A. directors, hospital nurses and doctors. Those are usually where those phone calls come from. They also come from friends, sometimes from family if they're concerned that another family member is abusing them. Occasionally they'll get a call from an elder themselves, but not nearly as often. Usually I'm not really sure where those folks are going, if anywhere, but they're not going through the hotline as often.
So when the police get the report, what's the next step after that?
Well, when we get a report of abuse or neglect,
Yeah.
if it's an emergent situation, the police would respond, and if need be, the fire department would respond along with emergency medical services, and we'd make an on-scene assessment. Whether it was the person, we'd have to, you know, in conjunction with the fire department, decide does the person need medical care, you know, does action need to be taken right now? And if it does, we'll do that, and then we'll follow up with Minuteman, Council on Aging, or other applicable agencies. If it's not an emergent situation or a situation where there's a little bit of self-neglect and the person is safe and they're good in where they are, but we can see that it's going to, the condition, situation may deteriorate and the person is going to need more help or more services, then we'll file the mandated report, and then we'll follow up with, or I should say Officer Reynolds would follow up. Unfortunately, we're dumping a lot of stuff on her. She would be, like again, the liaison. She would follow up between the police and Council on Aging and make sure that the person gets the services they need and gets lined up with the right agency.
Sometimes they'll actually call us to go out on scene,
Oh, really?
especially if the person doesn't want to be transported and things, they don't want to leave them alone. they'll ask us to come out, and they'll stay on scene until we get there.
When does it become a criminal offense?
Oh, obviously when there's a violation of law. Many types of physical abuse, obviously any type of physical abuse, physical assault, especially assault on a person over 60 years old, those are crimes. And that's when it's a
So
crime.
then where do you take it from there?
Well, it depends on the situation. There's no black and white answer from that. It could be an arrest situation. It could be a summons situation. A lot of this is driven by how the victim feels. I mean, we're still going to do what we have to do, but it's a very fluid situation, and I can't sit here and say, yeah, we're going to go in and arrest everybody, because it may not be an arrest situation. It may require law enforcement intervention, prosecution down the road, but we'll do what we can and have to do legally to get this person, the victim, to a better place.
Will the abuser get in trouble?
It depends on the situation.
Well, let's just say if they're physically harming someone, or some fraudulent thing like taking advantage of them money-wise. I mean, does that become a thing that the district attorney gets involved in?
Well, it can be. I mean, there you have a situation where maybe you go out and the police arrive and somebody clearly has just been struck, the person standing over them. There's probably going to be an arrest. So there's going to be a complaint that comes out of that. We're going to begin a prosecution of that case. And, you know, part of that's going to depend on, do we have enough evidence? Is the person physically and mentally well enough to be able to testify against the person who's been abusing them? So we're going to be assessing all of that. And then the other piece that's important is, even when we're prosecuting a case, there are lots of outcomes. So we're looking to hold a person responsible for what they did. We're looking to make the situation better. But we're going to work with the person who's been victimized in that situation. You know, often it's their child, it's their grandchild. They want the abuse to stop, but what they really want is maybe that person to get help for their substance issue or their drinking issue or whatever it is. We try to work with people to figure out what that is. So it isn't as simple as police come, someone gets arrested, someone goes to jail. There are lots of things that we're trying to make happen in between that to get everybody to a better place.
And sometimes it's just plain old caregiver stress. And so getting services in is really all that's needed, and arrest isn't always necessary.
What is the response time, let's say, for protective services to get to see the
So
elders?
there's 3 responses. There's the regular response, which is 5 days. There's a rapid response, which is 3 days, 24 hours actually. And then emergency response, which is 5 hours. And an emergency response could literally be somebody's taken out, you know, caregiver has a heart attack and the loved one has dementia and you can't leave them in the house alone. That could be considered an emergency. Or it could be something, if somebody's been physically abusing somebody and they're taken out of the house, that's no longer an emergency. So what you think might be an emergency isn't necessarily an emergency. It's really about the safety of the elder in that moment. Are they safe in that moment? Do they have food? Do they have heat? Are they sheltered? Can they be alone? And that often will determine the outcome of whether a report is an emergency or not.
I see. If it's a case of scamming, how does an elder protect themselves from that?
You have to be vigilant. You need to educate yourself. You need to pay attention to what your family is doing. You know, are they all in the area? You know, did Johnny really go to Mexico? And you have to follow up with, you know, if you get that grandparent scam, you have to call the family, you know, and say, is Johnny in Mexico? Is he okay? Even when they say, please don't call my mom and dad. We have programs at the senior center that we can help people with. If you question something, come to the senior center and we can look at it, or we can inform you. We put articles in the newsletter all the time, and Officer Reynolds and I are working on a program for January, which would be a series that would the police would come out and do kind of a scam of the month. So what's the scam of the month? Talk about how to deal with that scam and what you say or do to prevent yourself from becoming a victim. and then we'll do some role play so they can kind of practice those skills. You know, we have the RAD program where you practice protecting yourself. It's that same thing. You know, when you physically practice something, it becomes much more ingrained. And so, if something happens, you have the tools to pull out.
Are you going to do that at the senior center?
It'll be at the senior center.
Great, that'd be wonderful.
Yep.
Sandra, one other thing that we've done on the police end, with regards to scamming and being victimized, is the police department meets annually with all the banks in town and all the bank managers, and we update them on the new scams and the cons out there and how people are being victimized, and we encourage them, the banks, and to have their employees, if you have an elder or any person who normally does their normal banking routine, doesn't stray from it, and then all of a sudden they come into the bank wanting to withdraw $5,000, $10,000, we try to get them to engage them in a conversation. Oh, you know, are you buying a new car, or you going on vacation? Just because the behavior is out of the norm for that person. So the banks are very, very important players in this, and that they may be able to pick up signs with regards to financial abuse. Something out of the ordinary is happening, and so we ask them to engage the victim or their customer, just to see if there's something more than, you know, something more is going on. So community outreach is crucial in that aspect.
Absolutely, that's helpful. How difficult it is to locate people who are running these large scams? Is it difficult to?
Yeah, many of the scams aren't even run in the United States. The origin is out of the country.
Really?
So it's very difficult.
Absolutely. So it's like when people come to the house and they say they're going to do some kind of construction work for you, right? What advice can you give seniors about whether you should trust when they come, or should you check their identification? I mean, let's face it, they come in with a phony identification, right? How do they protect themselves in that situation?
I would say, basically, if you didn't call them, don't use them, you know?
Right.
You want to, you know, anytime you're going to do work on your house, you want to do your due diligence anyway. You know, you want to get a couple of estimates and you want to check references. So someone coming to your house isn't going to allow you to do that.
Right.
So my advice, stay away.
And if someone's demanding money up front, don't.
Don't. Yeah.
Don't give money up front.
Absolutely. With the holidays, you know, this is holiday time. We just went through December, and now we're in January, and it's a New Year's. And so what are things elders should look out for? Is more things happening like
Well,
this time
one
of
thing
year?
that always happens around a holiday or around some kind of natural disaster is people are kind. Most people are very kind and they're very generous, and people want to help. You know, so there'll be a bad storm, or there'll be, as we've seen, you know, a hurricane or something, and people want to be helpful. And they get very caught up in a phone call that they get, or an email or something to donate. You know, and the simple answer is, if you want to give money, go to a reputable charity. Don't be giving money over the phone, particularly if somebody called you, you didn't initiate that phone call. You know, one of the scams that we've just prosecuted was people using names that sounded familiar. So, you know, here in Boston, everybody knows the Jimmy Fund. We had a scam where people were saying it's the Jimmy's Fund for Children, or Jimmy's Fund of Boston. So a person hears that and they think, oh, Jimmy Fund, that's the Red Sox, that's a good thing, I want to give to that. And of course, it wasn't really that.
Right.
You know, a very popular one is scams around veterans. The word veteran is in there, but it's not really a legitimate charity. Or the police and fire departments. People call all the time and say, you know, people are well served by their first responders. They want to donate to them. And it's, you know, this is the Police Benevolent Relief Foundation. If you want to make a donation to the police or fire department, call them up, go down there, give them the money. Don't be giving it to some charity like that, because it's just, most of those are not legitimate, and you're really just throwing money away.
And actually, believe it or not, somebody called saying that they were raising money for Council on Aging.
Really? Wow.
2 summers ago. Yeah.
Has the opiate situation caused more problems for the elderly?
It's caused problems in a lot of different ways, yes. Because the two things that people who are struggling with an addiction need are the substances, for instance, opiates, if that's what they're addicted to, or they need funds to buy them. And unfortunately, in many circumstances, seniors, and which in Massachusetts is anybody over the age of 60, but seniors have one or the other or both of those. So seniors have money and property often, so they may find themselves vulnerable to somebody either they're related to or somebody who's coming in and out of their house who wants to get a hold of their money or their property. So credit cards disappear, cash disappears, jewelry disappears because somebody's using it to fund their addiction. Or many people maintain their health by having prescriptions. Lots of those prescriptions are opiates. So they have someone who's struggling with addiction who's coming in and manipulating their prescriptions, you know, taking a handful out of this bottle or that bottle. And that has a lot of consequences, not just of the pills being stolen, but if you're not taking those, your health is at risk.
Right.
So people may find themselves much more likely to fall or dizzy, or maybe they shouldn't be driving if they haven't been taking the appropriate medication. So that's one piece. We've also found that many people, especially many seniors, have pets. Pet medication is the same medication that's approved by the FDA for humans. So if you have a cat or a dog who's had some kind of procedure and they've been prescribed fentanyl or gabapentin, that's the same as humans. So people find that their pet medication goes missing. And then one of the biggest consequences is often two pieces. One is often you have a young adult who maybe has been thrown out of the house by their parents because of their substance, and they've gone to live with, you know, their grandmother or their grandfather who's taken them in. And they are put at risk physically sometimes by that person demanding money, demanding pills. You know, it can cause them to really be prisoners in their own home. And the other piece is, sadly, lots and lots of children have either lost their parents through an overdose or lost their parents because their addiction has made them not able to parent. And very often those kids end up going to their grandparents. So we have many, many grandparents in Massachusetts raising children because of opiates. So there's a lot of pieces of that.
Absolutely. Do we have a big problem here with that in Burlington?
Every place has a problem with opiates right now.
Yeah.
So to describe it as big would be, you know, I really can't because I don't know
Yeah.
the information the other towns have. We are having a problem. We try to address it the best we can. We just started the new Parry program a few months ago. That seems to be working very well. So there is a problem. I don't want to rate it to say if it's
Big or small?
big or small, but we, you know, every town has a problem.
Yeah. And what would you recommend to seniors to do in a case like you're saying, if you have a child in your home and you suspect that they're stealing your drugs or things like that? What do you suggest that they do? You know, they don't want to report them to the police.
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, they can obviously contact senior services. They can contact the Council on Aging. They can go to the police department and talk to folks about that. You know, we've also, partly in response to those concerns, we've begun a pre-arraignment diversion program so that someone who does report somebody to the police who's been stealing their pills or doing something, somebody who qualifies for that program and is willing to get treatment, allow them to do that. We don't arraign them on their case, so it's never entered on their record. They successfully complete the treatment. We don't go forward with the case. Our goal is to get the situation to a better place.
Excellent.
So, you know, and we've really done that in response to parents and grandparents who were wanted the abuse to stop, whatever form it was, but didn't want to have their child or grandchild end up with a record.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we are running close to time, so what message do any of you want to give to the seniors out there that you feel are important?
Well, the seniors or their relatives, the main message I think we should get across is there are many, many options, and we can get you the help you need, whether it be through the Council on Aging, the DA's office, the police department, even AARP has a great website that they can get some information on. The Consumer Affairs Office, the Massachusetts Consumer Affairs, Minuteman Elder Services. There's help out there. don't hesitate. Don't be afraid to call. Don't, we'll get you the help you need. Like I said, whether it's be the police, council on aging, it's out there. And there's so many resources. Don't hesitate not to use them. We're there to help.
Excellent.
I would say you're not alone. And call, even after you called the police and you've called the DA's office, call us because we'll go to court with you. We'll sit by you while you're going through whatever processes you need to go through. It's tough, it's emotional, and you don't need to be alone while you go through whatever it is that you're going through.
That's good information. You want a last comment?
Well, I think, no one should be afraid in their own home.
Right.
That is the one place where you should be able to feel safe. And if something is causing you not to feel safe there, it's important to, and people often, because they're embarrassed or they're reluctant to call attention to what they think is a family or personal matter, you really need to try to push past that and reach out, as I said, to the resources that are out there, the services that people have, because you certainly are not the only family that's experiencing these kind of things.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. This is a lot of excellent information. And ladies and gentlemen, out there, I hope that you listen to all these wonderful suggestions to protect our elders out there, and don't be afraid to get help. You aren't alone. There are a lot of organizations out here that are ready to help you, and especially during these times, we want you to get the help you need. So please stay with us and watch Be Prepared. This show will be shown already in December and this month in January. And it's also going out onto YouTube, so anytime you want to see it, you can see it. Please tell your friends about it and other elders that you know how important all this information is. So thank you for joining us, and this is Sandra Voltero, and this is Be Prepared. Thank you. Good night.